26. What was the thinking behind that?
Hi, Carve. Really, I think our situation is more complicated than any other country at the moment. We've known for a little while that we've got, of this 33, 12 players still to play in the European finals this week. So we were always going to need some additional players for the first part of our camp. Add into that, we've got some injuries that are at various stages. A couple we have very little information about at the moment, and a couple who are back into training or back into matches in Jordan and Jack Grealish, but still not in training consistently, not training with the team in Jordan's case. So we felt that more time is going to help us to make better decisions. And I've always said my preference would be to name the squad as a clean 26. We were able to do that ahead of Russia. We had standby players that knew their role, and I think that's always a preferable situation. But we've not got an ideal hand of cards this time, and there are a lot of unknowns, and I think information and evidence is really important when you're making decisions, and we'll have a lot more in the next 7 days, and we'll be able to make the best possible decisions that we can.
You've got 4 right backs in the squad at the moment. There's been a lot of debate about which right back could miss out. Trent Alexander-Arnold wasn't in your last squad. He is in this one. Has he done enough to be in the final 26?
Well, I could easily get drawn into talking about any number of individuals that might be in the 26, and then I'm going to get myself in a mess. So what I would say is you're looking at 4 right backs, and I know people feel I have an obsession with right backs. I just see 4 good footballers. Trippier can play right back or left back. Trent can play right back, wing back. I think he can play in midfield. In the last few days, I've seen Reece James play right of a 3 at wing back in the middle of midfield. We're going to a tournament, and those sorts of flexible players that can fulfil different roles but are good footballers are going to be hugely important to us. So we really don't know how the next few weeks are going to play out in terms of availability, injuries, what our best systems will be with the people we've got available. We've got too many question marks as I sit here today, but that will all become far clearer. We know what we'd like to do, and we've got good contingencies in place. With this squad, we've got a nice balance of some young players who, if they're with us for 1 week or for 5 weeks, it's going to be a brilliant experience for them. And we wanted to see some young players in this group as well. But also, of course, we're building towards a hugely exciting summer, and we've got to create a team that can win. So we're trying to balance all of those decisions.
Ben Godfrey and Ben White are in the squad for the first time. Is that a risk? What were you thinking behind their inclusion? And have you told that there is a good chance that they won't be in the final 26?
Well, again, the private conversations I've had with players, I'm not going to go into too much, but I think they're both exciting young defenders. There are others that we've also been looking at who we really like. Ezri Konsa has had a good season at Aston Villa. Fikayo's done well at Milan. So these two are very flexible. They can play in different roles as well. They can play left, right, midfield in Ben White's case. And this is a great opportunity for us to get to know them a bit better, for them to work with the team. I think it's works for everybody. So there's no way of knowing how long they'll be with us at this stage, but it should be a fantastic experience for all of them.
How difficult was it for you to leave out Eric Dyer? He's a player who's always been very close to you. You've made England captain in the past. He was part of your leadership group. He scored that penalty against Colombia at the World Cup. must have been really, really difficult to tell him that he was not going to be in the squad.
Yes, definitely. He is a man who I have tremendous respect for, and he has been, as you've rightly identified, a key player in some of our biggest nights, some of our biggest moments. And unfortunately, I just don't think his season's been strong enough to be in the squad. And that's a difficult call, because you know how much, or I know how much he brings to the whole group. And when you're away at a tournament, those team players, those people that put the team first, are critical. So that wasn't an easy conversation. But he's an outstanding professional, and he took the news in a really professional way.
I just want to ask you about one of his teammates, Harry Kane. Obviously, looks like he wants to leave Spurs this summer. How much of a danger that will become a distraction for you this summer, especially the fact that he is your captain? For instance, when he joins up with you at the weekend, he have to just park that one side. You say, look, once with the England cap, there can be no talks with agents. There can't be medicals for moves while you're here. You have to be 100% focused on England. Is a conversation that you had with him, or a conversation that you need to have with him?
Well, I don't ever need to have a conversation with Harry Kane regarding focus or professionalism. He has got one goal this summer whilst with us, and that's to win a European Championship. And I know how important that is for him at this moment in time. What's going on at his club is a matter for him and Tottenham. He's obviously made some statements in the last few days, so in many respects that's out of the way now. And I don't think I'm talking across the board here. I think it's very unlikely that transfer deals will be done while we're away. I think that's different when we have our camps in September. Very often we're on that deadline moment, and every now and then we've had to help facilitate a medical or a meeting between a player and a manager. I'm very realistic about those things. We're not going to stop phones ringing. We can't control conversations that are going on in private. But I wouldn't expect, I think most deals are done at the end of tournaments, or they're done in the first week after the end of the season. And I would expect anything across the board with our players to be after the tournament.
Regarding Harry Maguire, a couple of weeks ago, Gary Neville said that he is the most important player in your squad. He's the one player that you can't do without. How concerned are you about his injury situation at the moment? And do you have any information regarding whether he will be fit to play for England this summer?
No, I mean, understandably, from a club perspective, they've got a huge final tomorrow, and that hasn't been so easy for us to get information, and I totally understand that. So we will know more in the next couple of days, really, and that's again another reason why that sort of lack of information. Calvin Phillips was an injury, 93rd minute on Sunday. We'll know more about that in the next few days as to its severity and possible timelines. So these are the things that the realities we have had to cope with in the last few days, and it's why we just felt that more time would help us.
Just two quick questions for me to finish off, Gareth. The first one regarding Mason Greenwood. This is the first time he's been in one of the squads since what happened in Iceland. Is that all forgotten now? And what can he bring to this England squad? There's been a lot of talk recently about the fact that apart from Harry Kane, he is probably the best finisher in the Premier League. He's English.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the past, that is absolutely the past. I spoke with Mason before we selected him with the under-21s in March to make that very clear. So, I hope that his inclusion on this provisional list shows that, we're happy to select him. We think young people make mistakes, we move on from it. Was the same with Phil. He is an absolutely outstanding finisher, there's no question about that. He's another very young player. I think we've got around 18 players with less than 10 caps on this list, so a lot of inexperienced international players, and his all-round game is still coming together, but he's clearly got an exceptional talent for finishing, and that's why we picked him back in September.
And the one from me, Alan Russell, your attacking coach, has left. Are you going to be replacing him for this tournament?
Yes, we won't have a like-for-like replacement in that sort of specific area of work, but I'm disappointed for Alan and for us that situation has occurred. But we're really pleased to be able to bring Graham Jones in, who is obviously working with Newcastle at the moment. I've known Graham quite a while. He's got fantastic experiences of tournament football with Belgium, of course, with Roberto Martinez. Great experiences as an assistant manager and as a manager. So I'm really pleased that with Steve Holland, with Graham, with Martin Margetson, who's been to semi-finals with us and with Wales, and with Chris Powell, that we've got a really strong coaching team, and we're really looking forward to that challenge.
Before we progress, I am aware that some of you are picking up on connection issues. Just for clarity, we will circulate the full clean recording from this end to all, just to avoid any doubt, but we will persevere. Next, we've Carrie Brown from BeanymanSports. Carrie, are you there?
Hello.
Yep.
Sorry.
We've got you.
Hello, Gareth. I think a lot of Leicester fans will be asking why James Maddison, in terms of pedigree, what he's achieved in his career so far, isn't in the squad. Could you explain your decision-making process there?
Yeah, look, it's an area of the pitch where we've got unbelievable competition for places, and we just feel that there are players there that are ahead of James in those areas of the pitch. He's had a season that's unfortunately for him been disrupted by injury, and in more recent weeks he hasn't necessarily always been starting as well. It's been quite interesting. He hasn't been taking set plays. I've noticed Tielemans has been taking their set plays, which I don't know if there's more involved in that, but in most simple terms, we feel we've got players in those areas of the pitch that at the moment we see them as just ahead of James.
Saw the immediate impact Gillingham had coming into the squad, almost solidifying himself in one match. Ben White coming in the versatile player too. How much will you be assessing how well these players fit into the camp and fit into the chemistry of the side when you choose your final squad?
Yes, there's all sorts of things to consider. We're going to be away for a long period of time, and we're going to have 26 players for 23 places on a lot of match days. So it's a real test for the whole group on putting the team first, putting England first, recognising everybody will have their moment of a special moment that happens to them, maybe being the headline for a particular game, and those things always go in cycles. But we'll succeed as a collective, and right from the first day we report, that's part of the journey. When we reported ahead of Russia, we've got great photographic memories, books that we've got from day one right the way through, and some of those prep camps were really important to building the team spirit, for going through the detail of how we played. There were contributions that time from Adam Lallana, Jake Livermore, Tom Heaton, Lewis Cook. They were all training with us as standby players, and they played a massive part in that journey. So we never forget that. We've got to make sure that those contributions are valued. There's obviously still some difficult conversations for us to have, but those first 10 days of the camp with the 2 friendlies are a critical part of our preparation.
Jack Pitbrook.
Hi, Gareth. When are you expecting to get the players who are playing in the European finals back in your squad?
We'll give them a period of rest after their finals, similar to what we've done with the players that finished on the last day of the Premier League. Again, that's exactly how we approached it ahead of Russia. We had Jordan Henderson and Trent came in late for that. We think that time, when we've talked with the players about their experiences of the past, to have a break with their families, they felt was their preference to going away perhaps somewhere with the team. And we think that is invaluable time, given our aim is to be here for 9 games, including the friendlies. And that's going to be a period of time where probably towards from the start of the tournament onwards, there's a fair chance we won't be able to see families. So we want to get that first part right and get everybody psychologically fresh. So it does affect who we can play in those first 2 friendlies, and we've also got to make sure physically we give the players the right load. We can't overplay the players we've got in those friendlies, and we've also got players that might only be ready for 45 minutes in certain games, or perhaps a little bit longer. So all of those things we've got to thread together. But yeah, those players will report later.
Can we look at that's 1 week for the Europa League final players and 1 week Champions League final players?
It's probably not exactly a week, but it'll be 5 or 6 days, depending on the slightly different periodisation for the games and when they're due to report.
Thanks, Jack. Next we'll go to Ryan Bowdy.
Hey, Gareth.
Hi, Ryan.
The week we saw Harry Kane collect his award for being the Premier League's top scorer and top assist provider this season. We know all about his goal scoring, of course, but how impressed have you been by how his creativity has flourished this season? And is his ability to create chances for the players something you want to lean into in your tactical plan for the Euros?
Yeah, I think Harry has always had that capability as a player. He's always been able to play from a very young age as a number 9 or a number 10. So clearly that's been more pronounced this year in terms of the numbers. There were certain games like the game at Southampton where I think he created 4 for Son, didn't he? So there's been some clear patterns within their team that have consistently worked and have been a great provider of goals for them. But he's always had that. He's done that with us. He's for a centre forward who is such an outstanding goal scorer, he's got a fabulous weight of pass and great vision to see those passes. So he's an all-round outstanding player.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. Next we'll go to Alex Howell.
Hi, Gareth.
Hi, Alex.
But just ask a question about Ben White. Obviously, you called him up into the squad for the first time. And what he done to impress you? And what did he do to jump ahead of his team, Lewis Dunk, who you gave a cap to?
Yeah, it's less that we see him ahead of Lewis in that Ben's a younger player and there's a bit of an investment for the future there. We know that Lewis has had a very good season with Brighton, and I know Graham is delighted with what he's done for them. With Ben, we've tracked him since he was on loan at Leeds. We've seen him play in midfield. We've seen him play across the back line. He's comfortable with the ball. He's got pace. So, we know it's still early with centre-backs like Ben White, Ben Godfrey, Fikayo. Centre-backs tend to mature later, but these guys are getting good experiences at a young age in the Premier League. They're working with good coaches at their clubs, and we think it's a good opportunity for them to come and work with us.
And just ask how big of a blow it was not to have Nick Pope available to be in the squad.
Yeah, well, first and foremost for Nick, it's heartbreaking to get an injury so close to a major tournament. He's been a fantastic member of our squad Totally unselfish guy. In Russia, he spent hour after hour throwing himself around at penalties, which was as important in our success in the penalty shootout as the guys that took it, frankly, because him and Jack Butland were phenomenal in those situations. So, yeah, I'm really disappointed for him. It obviously opens up opportunities for others, and Sam and Aaron have finished the season well with their clubs. So Dean is of course in that battle for the number one spot at Manchester United at the moment. So. And I've got to say, Jordan has finished the season really strongly. I think since he's come back from his injury, his focus, his calmness in the goal has really stood out. So I'm very pleased with his form.
Thanks, Alex. Next we'll go to Marcello Courage from TV Globo.
Hi, Gareth. Good afternoon.
Hi there.
I would like to know your opinion about the group that England will play this Euro. People have been talking about the group that has Portugal, Germany, and France, the strong one, it looked like. But England's group is pretty complicated too, with the runners-up at the last World Cup, and Scotland, which is a close rivalry for English national team. So and Czech Republic, with Southgate playing so well. So what are your plans to deal with it?
Yeah, we've obviously individual game plans in terms of the tactical setups of the opponents and the key players in their teams, and we'll know a little bit more about how they're going to set up. With international football, a lot can change between March and June. Teams can play different systems. That's happened a lot in our experience over the last few years. So, of course, we've got background on how those teams have played up to now, but it will be interesting to see how they approach their friendlies, and then they might change again going into the tournament. They'll keep things to themselves. So, as you've said, good level of opposition. We were beaten in Prague, and I was very impressed with the Czechs, and they've continued to improve in the last year. As you've rightly highlighted, the two lads at West Ham have had outstanding seasons for them, and I know David Moyes is highly impressed with their character as well as their ability. So, yeah, we're not underestimating the group. Our first priority is to qualify from the group, and then everything leads from there. But as you rightly say, strong opposition, and something we can't take for granted at all.
Okay.
So, can I ask you if you think that Harry Kane is ready to be the top player in Europe at this season? He's at the peak of the game.
I think there's a great challenge for all of our players. We have some players that should be close to their prime, and we have a lot of young players that everybody's very excited about, and rightly so. But these stages, the big games, the big moments, are where you really make your reputation, you make your legacy, you stamp your name on football history, and that's what's so exciting for the players to be involved in. When you think about the big players of the past, a lot of those moments are in an international shirt, and that's the, as I say, opportunity that they have now. So to be big players, we have to step up in those moments, and if we want to be a successful team, we have to live with that little bit of pressure that comes with expectation. But it's exciting to be leading a team into a European Championship that has an opportunity to bring the country out of the gloom of the last few months, and to have fans back in the stadium has already been so exciting to see at the end of the league season and for the late stages of the cup ties. So we're really looking forward to the whole experience.
Thanks, Marcello. Next we'll go to Kieran Canning.
Hi, Gareth.
Hi, Kieran.
You mentioned right at the start that you have a different situation to almost any other country in terms of the number of players involved in the European finals. You also had something similar in 2019 ahead of the Nations League. Just wondering if there's anything you've learned from that camp that you can take forward, because obviously there's going to be some disappointed players come the weekend in terms of how the Champions League final goes. And also, just previously, you said that you weren't the biggest of the 26-man squads, but now it seems you are going to take 26, unlike some other countries. Can you explain the rationale behind that?
Yeah, sure. I think what did we learn from the Nations League? Well, in terms of those Champions League players arriving, it wasn't a case of what we learned. We knew that was going to be incredibly complicated. I think we had 7 or more players, of which 4 or 5 arrived 3 days before a massive game for us, having lost one of the biggest games of their lives. I don't think you could really appreciate how difficult that was in terms of preparing our team, not only the physical strain of that match, but the emotional baggage of the winners and the losers. So what we have on this occasion is a little bit more time between that game and when the players arrive. Then we could only give them 2 days. We were playing 3 days later. Now we're able to give them a little bit of time to go and decompress, and then time to come in and work with us and focus on the tournament, which they've of course got huge motivation for anyway. The 26, I'm still not a fan of 26. I think, as Luis Enrique said yesterday, you want everybody to feel that they're there or thereabouts, and we could end up, if we've got everybody available and fit for each match, we could end up with people not even on the bench. So that's not a great team dynamic. But I think the risk of not taking 26, especially if we've got injury doubts and we just don't know what could happen with COVID and everything else. So we felt that's important. I think Lewis has gone smaller partly for the harmony of the group, but I suspect he's also got the backup of knowing his under-21s are in their European finals, and if they have any issues in the first 10 days or so, I suspect he'd be able to call in some very good quality players from that group. Maybe. I don't know all of his thinking, but I suspect that's a good fallback, whereas with us we'd be calling players off the beach after a fortnight, and that won't work really. So as you say, everybody's going to approach that differently. It's fascinating to see how everybody's done it. Some named a week ago, they were able to do that. Everybody's circumstances are a bit different, really.
Okay, thanks, Kieran. We've got time for a couple more. We're next, Tom Leach from Hampshire Live.
Hello, Gareth. You okay?
Hi, Tom.
No place for Danny Ings, I noticed, in the squad. Have injuries played the biggest part in that decision? And do you feel a little bit of sympathy with him that, were this tournament played last summer when it was meant to be played, he probably would have been in there?
Well, I think we probably have looked at the squad in March. You know, the basis of this squad is the squad we had together in March. There's obviously players that have come back into the squad, and we were very pleased. So, you know, the forward players that we've selected were with us in March, and that is unfortunate that Danny's missed that. There are, of course, Danny, Patrick Bamford have had very good seasons, and I've said that before. But we didn't see any reason to change those positions from the players that did well for us in those games. You know, the 3 qualifiers that we won in March.
Can I just ask one more as well about the midfield battle that you've got? There's some brilliant midfielders in there: James Ward-Prowse, Calvin Phillips. James Ward-Prowse on Sunday became the first Premier League midfielder ever to play every minute of 2 consecutive campaigns. How impressed have you been with him, working with him when he's been with you in the game?
Well, we've worked with James since my very first game taking the under-21s, so that's been a long journey. It's been amazing to see, you know, his life progress. Really, he's a father. I think he gets married soon, so it's you know, lovely to watch players go through that journey on their life, and to step from being a young player with Maurizio, I think at first at Southampton, then now he's captain under Ralph. So he's a fantastic professional. That's why he's been able to, you know, bat those games out. There's always a little bit of luck in having an injury-free run like that. But you know, with someone like James, he'll do everything he can to make himself the best condition he can be in and recover in the best possible way and eat the right things. And he'll, you know, he's a very, very good professional.
Thanks, Tom. Okay, I'm going to disappoint quite a few raised hands, but we're going to have to finish with Scott Wilson of the Northern Echo.
Hi, Gareth.
Hi, Scott.
Just one on Jordan Henderson. How touching are you worried that it might be with Jordan? And does he have to be able to play in one of the 2 games up at Middlesbrough really to realistically be included in the final group?
Yeah, Scott, while I think also, because I know it's relevant for your patch, I need to thank Steve Bruce and Lee Charnley for their help with letting us work with Graham. They've been incredibly supportive, and I'm very appreciative of that. So in terms of Jordan, we actually think Jordan, the level of work he's been able to achieve is very high. What we haven't been able to see yet is him on the pitch in the match situation, where he's firmly on track to be involved in those games and to be able to play in those games, and there would be no point in bringing him if that wasn't a possibility. So in some regards, he may be ahead of others. He's had a long period out, but he's had a high training load without the matches. Jack Grealish has had a long period out, has played the matches, maybe hasn't had the intensity of the training. So we've got to see how they respond to training with a group, what their recovery is like, what other issues that could throw up. So, these are, although they're heading in a good direction, these are not an ideal situation. And we've got 4 of those with Calvin and with potentially Harry Maguire as well. So we're just going to have to monitor all of those really closely.
Okay, thanks, Scott, and thanks everybody for joining.